You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the USA Epee fencing fencer, Ncaa Brummen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into professional fencing?
Well, so I really didn't know that, but I got started at a young age, about 8 years old, actually. And it was because I spent the night at my friend's house, and she actually had started fencing. And so Saturday morning came around and she said, "Oh, let's, join me at fencing practice." And so I went to this fencing practice. And I went home that day and I said, "Mom, I'm fencing. This is awesome and I love it. Can I please fence?" And I've been fencing ever since. And that friend, I'm still friends with her, and she always tells me, "Hey, don't forget, you're welcome."
What was it like going to Princeton and getting into college fencing?
It was a really unique time, I think, for probably a lot of sports people in NCAA sporting divisions, because I know for myself, for a long time, the way the US system is set up, it's a very individual approach. So I really always kind of felt a little alone. Like, you have a club, but you're kind of always out there competing for yourself. And the time I spent competing at Princeton was really my first opportunity to feel like a real part of a team. And that made a huge difference for me. It really reinvigorated me. It really, just kind of reignited my love for fencing. And that is something I will always value and be thankful for.
During your time at Princeton, what was it like getting to put on the Princeton looms?
It was great. I think more than anything, more than the name itself, what felt really special was just getting to put it on alongside my fellow competitor. I mean, not competitors, but teammates.
What were some of your biggest accomplishments during your college time?
Honestly, what I would have to say, which is not necessarily a result, is just being able to manage academics and fencing together, because that was one of the hardest things. And that was one of the things I learned the most from, more than any of the fencing results.
What was that balance like of obviously balancing academics, but also being a college athlete and representing the college?
It was incredibly hard. It was one of the, growing up, kind of attending high school, it was never as demanding, and it didn't require me to make as many decisions as kind of in college. You have all these opportunities available to you. And so you have to be able to decide, at what point am I spending my time fencing, and at what point do I want to also take these other opportunities? And what does that ratio look like? And how exactly, you have to kind of make these lifelong decisions about how much fencing is a part of your life.
What was it like in 2015 going to the Ncaa championship and winning bronze?
It was great. That was my first time competing in the Ncaa championship. And it was a tough loss. It was a 15-14 loss. I remember it distinctly. And I'm still great friends with the girl I lost to. She actually just right before this interview today posted a kind of throwback to, it was 8 years ago, and a picture of the championship. But I only have fond memories of it. It was great.
What was that like going to your first Ncaa championship?
So that one was the first one I had competed in, but I had gone to the one 2 years before as kind of an alternate or supporter. So I guess going and being able to compete in my first one, it was definitely higher pressure, but it felt really, again, it all kind of comes down to the team that's there with you. And so being able to kind of be on that team, feel the pressure, and then also support the people around you who are also feeling that pressure, it really is just for me, that's where I get like my fire for fencing, is the people I'm around. And so that it was really nice to be able to get out there and kind of put it on the line for them.
What was that like in 2017 going back to the Ncaa championship and competing and winning a gold medal this time?
Even better. It was so in the 2017 championship, I actually fenced the final against my teammate and close friend Kat Holmes. And so it was both great getting to win gold, and it was great getting to share that final with her and to be able to make it there together. So it was, again, a very special experience and something I'm, going to remember forever.
Of course, as you said that you competed against your teammate, what was that like competing against your teammate that that obviously there's strengths and weaknesses because you practice with them?
It's a totally different game than fencing someone you haven't fenced before, because exactly as you said it, what their go-tos are, kind of what their strengths are. And so for me, I knew we had always traded back and forth, win, loss, win, loss. And so I kind of went up there and I felt like I had nothing to lose. I was like, okay, if I lose, she wins, that's great. And if I win, I win, and that's also great. And so I got up there and I felt like I could really just fence my best without the pressure. And so then I won, and that was, nice. But at the same time, it's also hard to see your teammate lose. So it's always a very complicated scenario when you have to fence a teammate, especially at a high level.
Looking back on your collegiate career, what was that like, obviously being the first EC championship of obviously the program's history?
That was something I've been working for a long time to really go to NCAAs and do well and bring back a gold. And so, yeah, it felt incredibly rewarding. And it was also exciting because then the year after, another teammate, women's epeist, Kasha Nixon, then brought home gold too. So it felt cool also not to be alone up there, to kind of know that the whole program is rising up.
How does it feel to obviously have your name in the records of being the first champion at Princeton?
It feels good, but it also I think having done it, it doesn't feel like such a huge thing. I guess it's always fun to kind of, go back and see your name there, but it's not something that, changes my life. The rest of my life is still same old, same old. And so it's something I'm proud of. It's something I accomplished, but it's not something I kind of reflect on too much.
What was it like, obviously, going to the Ncaa Championship and the Pan American Games in the same year in 2017?
It was very fun. To the Pan Am Championships. Okay, sorry. Oh, it was great. I mean, it was really cool, especially because you go to the Pan Am Championships because you made the team. And so then you also go to World Championships. And so, that year I'd been fencing well. And so it just you feel when you make that's not necessarily where it stops. You want to succeed again. And it's actually funny because at the Pan Am Championships, I fenced Kat again. And this time I lost to her. So we run into each other a lot.
What was that like, running into her, obviously after winning, but then losing in this last go around?
We've done it so many times that it's so again, I think sometimes when you fence teammates, the pressure either escalates or it de-escalates. So you either feel like, oh my gosh, I have to win. Like I usually win in practice, I have to win now. Or sometimes you get up there and you're just like, oh, it's Kat, let's just go and fence our best, and what happens, happens. And so for me, that's really my approach fencing Kat. She won, she got some good touches. And so it was kind of like darn, I didn't win, but she did what she had to win. So it wasn't hard.
Of course, in 2016, what was it like going to the World Cup?
Actually, so I had taken a year off from college the year before to try and make the Rio Olympic team. And I was unsuccessful. I didn't make the team and I had a really bad season. And so my first approach after was, I don't know if I want to keep fencing. I feel really down about it. And so I'd kind of taken a little bit of a break. And then after a few months, I thought, you know what? I really miss getting to go, getting to compete, getting to improve, and getting to see my improvement as a fencer. And so I actually signed up pretty last minute. I thought, I want to do it. I want to go back again. And then, I ended up having a great result.
What was it like competing in the Olympics for the first time?
That was this past year in Tokyo. Again, what it really comes down to is the team that you're there with. And for me, it was a team of girls I feel really proud to have been there with. And so getting to be there, getting to be up on that stage with that group of people, win or lose, whether or not it's the result you want, you kind of, it's all about the moment. And so it was really rewarding, and it was something you dream of for so long. You think, Olympics, that just, I guess, having done that, it feels almost like a weight is taken off. So it's kind of like, okay, I've done that. Like, what am I fencing for now? And I know I'm just fencing for myself. I'm just fencing for improvement, and I'm just fencing because I love it.
What was the feeling like when you found out that you made the Olympic team to go to the Olympics?
It was, well, I called my friend and we cried together. So I think that pretty much sums it up. I was in Russia and it was a little mixed because it was at a tournament that I myself had not done that well at, but I had done well at the other tournaments. So I was kind of sitting back and watching other Americans get their results. And I knew, okay, so she needs this result to pass me. She needs this result to pass me. She needs this result to pass me. So it was a very stressful time just kind of watching and knowing it was out of my hands. But no one passed me. So that's what kind of sealed that deal. So it was both very exciting and also kind of weird because at the same time, it's not me making it at that moment. Like, of course, in the past, I had the results. But yes, that's kind of, I guess, it's hard to explain, but definitely it felt great, but there was a little bit of something else in there.
What was it like preparing for this Olympics and going to the Olympics?
So this Olympics preparing was really hard, specifically because of COVID. So going up until 2016, when they were originally meant to happen, everything was normal until March, and the team is usually decided in April. And so we were in that last little period before, COVID broke out, everything was canceled, and then the Olympics themselves were postponed. And so for a while, everyone was saying, oh, the Olympics are going to be canceled. And so it was really hard to say, okay, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to train my hardest. I don't know when the last tournament is going to be held. We didn't know when the last selection tournament would be because it kept getting scheduled and then canceled and then scheduled and then canceled, all because of COVID. And so it was a real mental struggle, just being like, do I spend all my time training? What if the Olympics are canceled? What if it's just a huge waste of time? What if there's something else I should be doing? What if I should be focusing on my career? So it was kind of crazy. And I think for me, I found a really good ratio again between work and fencing. And a lot of that was thanks to the roommates that I have, because they would really help push me to train, or when I needed a break, they'd be like, take a break. And that made a huge difference for me.
Of course, what was that feeling like when you got to put on the U.S. Team USA Olympic jersey and obviously represent USA?
It felt, I'm trying to it's funny because in some sense it doesn't feel that different, because for so much of the year, we go to these World Cups and we represent USA. So the representation of USA is something that I think I've kind of come to take for granted, just because it's something I do so often, but I've kind of had more time to reflect on that recently. And, it's great. There's definitely, there's parts of being a US fencer. Sometimes you think, oh, fencers in other countries get supported more, or fencers in other countries have national training center or things like that. But, I would not change anything. I love getting to fence and represent the US. I was raised here. It's a huge part of me. And so that's really, yeah.
What is that feeling like of obviously having the Olympic rings on your uniform?
It feels good, but it also is something to just kind of move on from, in my opinion. So it's something that, yes, I accomplished that, but that's not where I want to stop. There's still a lot more I want to do. I still want to kind of become the best fencer I can be and see how high that goes. So for me, it's both very exciting, but it's also something I don't want to get stuck on.
Of course, what are some similarities and differences between your fencing and foil fencing?
Well, epee fencing is a lot easier to understand. That's what I tell everyone. It took me a long time to understand foil and saber. But epee fencing, so anywhere on the body counts. So I can hit you in the foot, I can hit you in the mask, I can hit you in the hand, and those are all viable touches. The other thing is that, if you both hit each other at the same time, in foil and saber, only the person who has something called right of way gets the touch, but in epee, you both get the touch. So it's pretty much, if your light goes off, you get the point. Which lends itself to it being, I think it's a little more scrappy of a sport, in the sense that people come up with some really odd ways of fencing and they're really effective. And so I actually love that. I love that it's kind of the style that you fence can be a reflection of you. And that might be a case also in foil and saber, I know less, but it's something I really love about epee.
What is your style in epee fencing?
So my style is definitely, so I'm a French grip fencer, which means so often there's a handle right at the base of the epee, which gives you a lot of strength and control. And the handle I use is actually a little bit further away. So it gives you an increased length, but it decreases the strength that you have with the epee. So my game is kind of, actually my coach once called it anti-fencing, which is kind of a funny way of describing it, but I think very kind of astute, because my goal is to basically make you mess up and make you kind of buy the right time to make a nice attack and then counterattack and then hit you on the foot and then duck and then kind of come up with ways to hit you around your mistakes.
Of course, in epee fencing, what is it like, obviously, being able to train to have balance when you have to go back and forth so many times?
It's that's one of the parts that you really have to work on, that kind of change of direction. I think in a way it's very similar to soccer and stuff, where you really have to work on the agility, you have to work on the footwork, because you have to know exactly where your balance is at any point such that you can go forward or go backward. And for me, I get hit a lot when my balance isn't right. And so that's still something I'm working on. It's never something that, you have down perfectly, I would say.
Of course, during the Olympics, did you ever receive any medals? And what was it like if you did receive any?
We did not receive a medal at the Olympics, which was actually kind of a big disappointment for us. We had gotten bronze 2 times in the season going into the Olympics. So we were really kind of pushing for a medal, and we ended up getting 5th. So it was both really disappointing. And for me personally, I'm kind of the opinion that a medal would be great, but it wouldn't change my life. And so as long as I get out there and really try, really fight, like obviously sometimes it's disappointing, but it's not life-changing.
What are some of your game day routines and rituals?
Well, I definitely like getting to the venue pretty early. I like not feeling rushed. I like knowing I have the time I need to warm up, to, jog, to get myself ready. And then I sit for a little bit. So I get myself ready, I sit, I kind of collect myself. And what I do the night before, and what I always want to have, is a little sheet of paper. And the night before, I write the notes of kind of what I want to remind myself of in terms of fencing, like technique. So kind of where to keep my balance and things like that, just some buzzwords. And then also just remind myself why I'm there and things like that. So then I kind of read over that paper, I try to settle it in, and then I go fence.
Of course, when you came back to US after the Olympics, what was that like, coming back to US and obviously having those people and your fans fall in love with you, but still obviously go back to your normal life and not be Olympian?
It's hard. It's definitely so for me, it was kind of coming back to, I've got a full-time job. So I got to spend these 3 weeks just fencing, which I loved so much. I got to just, everything was structured around fencing. I didn't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about money. You just like go and you fence. And so then coming back and having all those other worries kind of come back, and all the other logistics of life, and oh yeah, this, that was just kind of like a vacation. This is the normal stuff. It's a really hard transition, and for me, again, kind of the thing that makes it doable, or the thing that made it okay, was the people around me. And so my friends and my boyfriend supporting me when I came back, and just kind of, they gave the recognition. They were like, oh my god, you went to the Olympics, you did great. And then they helped me kind of resettle back into normal day-to-day life.
What is something that you learned now that you didn't know before, obviously, fencing?
Oof. I fenced for so long. I don't even have that many memories of before I was 8 years old.
On the
I think
professional side?
right. I think it's definitely well, first of all, it's how to set goals, how to take disappointment. I think that's a huge thing, how to take loss and disappointment and how to benefit from it, actually, and not just let it destroy you, how to let it build you back up as well. I think that's one of the biggest things. And the other thing is really how to prioritize in life, how to make sure the things that you value, and you're always going to have to make sacrifices, and that'll be okay as long as you know what things you value most.
Who are some people that you look up to in the fencing community?
Well, there's quite a few. There's always, my coaches and my teammates. They're some of the people I look up to the most. Absolutely. And then there's, the great fencers. So for example, we had one fencer, Anna Maria Bronza, now Popescu, who retired after this Olympics, and I never got to fence her individually, and that was something I always wanted to do. So I do feel like that's a shame, but so it goes. The other, there's always, so the Olympic champion, Sun from China, she's a French grip fencer, and she fenced just so confidently and so creatively. And that was something I definitely watch and say, okay, how do I work to get there too? So, and then you have, in the US, you have the men's foil team and the women's foil team. You have Lee Kiefer, who's the Olympic champion. Like, just seeing all these fencers doing so well. I mean, there's so many people I look up to actually that it's really helpful. There's so much more to do for me.
What advice would you give future people, female athletes looking to go into fencing?
I would say, fencing is a great sport, but all sports at a certain level require sacrifice and require a lot of sacrifice. And so if you're looking to kind of get to that elite level, you just have to know that you love it and that you're willing to do those sacrifices, and finding people who can support you along the way, because it's impossible to do alone. I think maybe you can, but in my opinion, it's impossible. So.
What are some of your future plans in your fencing career?
Well, we have 2 tournaments coming up in May, one in Cairo, one in Dubai, and I'm going to go compete at those. My goal is to make the Paris Olympic team. And so I'm going to keep kind of pushing to go there, and then we'll go from there. I'm not a big long-term planner. So one step at a time.
What advice would you give people looking to go to the Olympics for the first time, like you did, or multiple times?
Enjoy it. Just make sure when you get up there, you enjoy it and you give it your all, because the worst thing would be to go and come back with regrets.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
I am on Instagram and LinkedIn. And
thank you again, Anna Van Benman, for your interview, and best of luck in your future in the U.S. fencing.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.